episode. They keep your DNA and they use it because they want to clone you.
This is about to sound kind of crazy.
Oh my God, did you eat a twin?
I think I ate a twin.
She did a DNA test to find out who her father was. And the father
Uh-oh.
was...
Okay.
Okay.
I'm hanging on. I'm in suspense. Oh my God, who was?
Sisters Processing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sisters Processing. Processing. I am Ariel, aka A Wandering Orc, and never skip game day.
And I am Danny Dutch, also known as Danny Dutch TV.
Today, I think we have something very mysterious and interesting, Danny.
Yes, I haven't told her what we're talking about today, but
have no clue.
the final reveal, our main topic of the day, will be DNA ancestry testing.
Oh my goodness. Oh, this is fascinating. I actually do know a little bit about this, so I'm kind of excited.
I'm excited to share what I found with you. But before we get into that, is there any tech news or anything exciting going on in your life that you want to talk about for the week?
Well, Danny, as you know,
Yes.
I have rejoined the modern world on Instagram.
Yes, twice actually.
Yes, twice with A Wandering Orc and Never Skip Game Day. And you know what? I haven't had an Instagram in years now. I did like years ago. I deleted my Facebook. I deleted my Instagram. I never looked back until I looked back. I'm like,
And how's it
looking
been?
now. Well, so far I haven't posted anything.
I know. I was gonna say I'm ready for the fire posts, and they have not yet.
I'm gonna post something tonight. See, that's the thing, right? They gotta be fire.
They gotta be fire, especially after like a 3-year hiatus.
I know. I have to like come back like better than Michael Jordan's comeback, if you recall that. Like I have to make this better. Like his was a huge comeback and everyone was so excited and that was amazing. I don't think I can top that. I just need to make it better than his second comeback.
Okay.
I'll consider it good.
All right. Well,
which kind of fizzled.
We're waiting. Your audience is waiting.
My audience of one.
Yes.
Let's see what else. I have been popping together the website for Sisters Processing. Processing. That's just sistersprocessing.com. I think it's rather fun. I'm still working on the design. It's still like the very basic like design. But it's got like, if you're looking to listen to us in like multiple different places, it's got all of that in the like the podcast information. So I guess while we're at it, we are on all major podcasting platforms. And you can follow us on our socials at Sisters Processing. You know, like, subscribe, leave 5 stars, and we post a new podcast every Tuesday at 5 a.m. Eastern Time, barring any unforeseen technical difficulties.
Hey, we're on episode 3. I think we get at least 2 episodes to figure out the kinks. So. You can hold us accountable for this one, but the other ones, let it slide.
Yeah, the accountability starts now. And if we mess up, the accountability starts
next week.
Yes. What about you? Is there anything on your mind lately?
I don't have any tech news for us this week, but Resident Evil 4, the remaster, is coming out this week. And I have never played Resident Evil 4. I've only played Resident Evil 8, The Village, and it was fantastic. But my Twitch audience was mad at me because I didn't start with, I think it was 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 and 7 and 8.
Amazing.
Okay, it must have been 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 that I was supposed to play in that order with the DLCs. And I started at the very end.
Well, here's the thing. I've only ever played Resident Evil 5. Are the stories actually connected? Is that really
apparently.
A big deal?
Yeah.
What?
At least,
I didn't know that.
At least in 7 and 8. I can't really vouch for the other ones, but that's what I heard. It's, it makes a lot of sense because when I was playing it, I had no idea what was going on and why I was a married man with a baby and who my wife was and what town I was in. And, but I do want to play Resident Evil 4 now that it's all polished up. Let's get into the main topic, genetic ancestry testing, DNA testing. You have actually done this, I believe, because you sent me the results and I was fascinated.
I did, and it changes every once in a while because, as far as I understand it, their information, or yeah, I am so looking forward to you like giving me tons of information on this and like correcting me because, from what I understand, the information that they have is constantly growing, and the sort of pockets of people's DNA that they collect is constantly growing. So they keep expanding to like new areas and figuring out like, oh, this DNA is from this region, and then so your DNA will change based on their expanded information, or at least your DNA results that they show you. I was a lot of several things, and then that altered quite a bit, and now I am some other things.
Oh,
But
you
what I
checked
showed
back in
you
on
is
it.
I do. I check back in every once in a while just to see what changed, you know? It's like
Interesting.
it's my
Interesting.
Ancestry social media account
I
in
love
some
it.
kind of ways. I have to pop
This is
back
what
in
you've
and
been
see
up
what
to for the
reels.
past 3 years.
That's why I didn't need an Instagram. I just check my my Ancestry every day, and it changes just a little bit, and I feel fulfilled. It
Love it.
brings me joy.
DNA testing is done through companies like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. It's about 99.9% accurate. So, as you say, they're always updating it with new information, but it is extremely accurate what they do find. You can see where your ancestors are from, what countries, etc., what health risks you may have based on your ancestors. And you can also see DNA matching to specific people who have used the same service in some cases. Which one did you do?
I did Ancestry.com. And it was after they changed their licensing agreement because many people may remember their old licensing agreement that said once they had your DNA, they owned it for all intents and purposes. And so I didn't do it back then due to public outcry because nobody really wants someone to have an unrestricted license on their DNA. They did change the licensing agreement to say, oh, we own your DNA for this specific purpose.
Okay.
So,
So you
and
did it
that,
after they had changed it.
yes,
I'm
after
actually
they,
surprised that they went backwards in that policy, but I guess it
I'm,
just had enough people upset
it
about
was
it.
a pretty big outcry, I
Okay.
think, at the time because DNA, that sort of service, I think, was fairly new in a widespread kind of way at the time. So it took people a minute to figure out what was going on. It took the
Yeah.
people who read licensing agreements.
Yeah.
And
Literally
then
just you.
it's not just me. There are dozens of us, dozens.
Yeah.
And so I believe that I read through that entire thing on like Reddit from people who were willing to put in that kind of effort to figuring things out.
So when you did it, did you get a package where you can see not just where your ancestors are from, but health risks or DNA matching or anything like that? Because I
I
know
think
different
that's
companies offer different things and also different levels of what you can see.
yeah. So with ancestry.com when I did it, and this is not sponsored by the way. None of this is sponsored. When I did it, I got it was mostly all the information I got was digital. It didn't talk about health risks. I think that's more of a 23andMe thing, unless I'm mistaken. But what I wanted to know was purely like genetics. I just wanted to know,
Mm.
where I'm from, what parts of the world I was from, and but it did tell me like, it guessed what color my eyes
It
were, and
did?
then it did.
Was it
I can't.
accurate?
At the time, I believe so. It did say that I had like blue in my eyes. My eyes are two different colors. So I do have blue like in there and then there's like a yellow ring on the inside. So it never shows up on camera and
I
it
always thought
probably
you had
never
green
will.
eyes.
I have always had green eyes, but that's created by like an optical illusion of the blue and the yellow, like almost mixing together in the light. So it's
Okay.
super weird. So I do have a blue ring. I know you have blue eyes. Like
And they're
you've got
like
our mom.
oceany
You've got our
green.
yeah, and mine are like my dad's eyes and yours are
Yeah.
like our mama's
They
eyes.
really
But
are
like
identical, each of us. It's kind of
yeah.
creepy.
It is. It's super weird. Another thing it told me was whether or not asparagus would make my pee smell. And let's see, what was the other thing?
It
Whether I
has
liked
to, right?
cilantro. Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
thought it makes everyone's pee smell.
No, it doesn't. That's a genetic thing.
Well, I've
Uh,
heard about the cilantro thing.
yes.
What
So
did
it
it
did tell
say?
me it said I liked cilantro and I was like, "Oh yeah, I do.
I do
You're right."
too. Yeah, checks
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
Anything else crazy that you learned from your test?
Let me see.
I've never taken one myself. I've just relied on your information because eh,
But this
I
is the
figure
interesting
it's all the
thing.
same.
No, it's not. Well, I don't know how much research you did into the DNA aspect of it, but I got obsessed for a minute. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to pop out some stuff here. I don't remember where my sources were. Feel free to look it up. But So as far as I understand it, whenever we're in high school, at least this is how I was taught. Maybe it wasn't high school. I don't know. It's all a blur. But, you get 50% of your DNA from your mom and 50% from your dad. However, what they didn't tell me was what parts of those 50% can vary wildly. So I could have, let's say, more German or Swedish or
Mhm.
something in me than you, and you might have a lot more Scottish, or because whatever it can pull from any percentage of that 50%. So it's pulling from all the DNA of your mom, and it's going to pull like random bits. So you could like not have an entire like genetic imprint
Yeah.
that your sibling has.
Yeah, I actually learned this recently too. So essentially, so your mom has 50% of her mom and her dad. I have 50% of my mom and my dad. So 50% of my mom, the part that I'm taking, the 50%, could be completely from my grandma or my grandpa. I don't know because I haven't actually done the test, but I do know what you're saying about the variation. I just, we kind of look similar and
We do.
have similar traits, so I just assume.
But our eyes. I'm half
It's true.
lizard, you're half sky person. So
Don't tell them that.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I've I've
Exposed.
I've doxed you. Oh no.
That
Uh
would be a shocking discovery. And speaking of shocking discoveries, we have all heard the stories about long lost siblings being found through DNA testing, stories of being
yes.
switched at birth, of finding your biological parent, etc. But there are some more rare cases that I uncovered. Reader's Digest actually listed out quite a few of them, so I picked my favorites. Lydia Fairchild, a mother of two, filed for government assistance, and they asked for a DNA test to make sure that the children were really hers so that they could provide her with financial assistance,
Uh-huh.
right? So the DNA test actually revealed that she was not the mother.
What?
She may have been the aunt. And this makes no sense because, she birthed these children herself. How
Mhm.
could this be? So
Mhm.
she is pregnant. She is having her third baby. She invites the government to come and act as a witness. They do a
Yeah.
DNA test on the spot. It confirms again that she is not the mother. Scientists figured out that she was a chimera. She had absorbed a twin when she was in the womb, and that was who was showing up on the maternity tests.
So this is about to sound kind of crazy.
Oh my God, did you eat a twin?
I think I ate a
Do
twin.
I have a
Like I
sibling that I never
like
knew?
my eyes are two different colors, just slightly. So my eyes are two different colors and like from each other. And I also have like birthmarks on my body that is like, I don't know.
Is that where
I think
you fought in the womb?
I, I would like to think that I enveloped them lovingly and it was a loving feast. I don't know. But also if you take my face and you like split it right down the center, it's like two different faces.
Oh, my face isn't symmetrical either. No one's
No, but
is.
mine is really different.
Oh
It's
my.
not like a little bit different.
Are
It's
you a
like
chimera?
the one is like a beefy looking like German woman, and the other one is like a slender elf or something. It's very different. I don't know. I don't know. I like to think that I ate my twin. I don't know why I like to think that, but
Uh-huh.
also I asked mom about it once, and
What did she say?
she said that she was not aware of having been pregnant with twins. But also I'm a Gemini, so just saying. It all fits.
It all makes sense. And I suppose she wouldn't know if you ate the twin early in the
If I
process.
did it early on.
Well, you've done DNA testing and they didn't come back saying that you were a chimera. So maybe you're the dominant twin, or you need to have
Well,
a child in order to.
well, the thing is, they wouldn't know whether I was a chimera or not because they only test from one location. And the whole thing
Mm.
is you have DNA, like two different types of DNA. Like in the, I think with a chimera, it's generally like the birthing regions have a different set of DNA. That happens with men as well, where I guess not to get too into it, I suppose, but yeah, they're definitely like different DNA down there, and then in the rest of your body, so you can like test. And that's why with crime scenes and stuff, they love to pull that out in like CSI, and they're like, oh, it couldn't have been this guy because the DNA doesn't match, and it's like you're pulling from the wrong place. Like, yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
So in this case, was she birthing the child of her twin?
Now that is fascinating. Again,
So if
I'd
you
like
had
to
a
think they
kid,
worked together. They
if you
worked
had a
together. It
kid,
was their
is there a possibility that you would birth the twin that you consumed? You would birth their child.
I would like to hope so. It's almost like them being reborn into the world.
I like it. Okay.
Or
It's fascinating. It's crazy that that is even a possibility.
it's
And
wild. Yeah.
yeah, like I said, genetics are fascinating. In another instance, Kelly Rowlett knew her parents had used a sperm bank to conceive her, right? But
Hmm.
she took a DNA test and she learned out who her true father was.
How are people learning who their actual parents are? They must be taking way more in-depth DNA tests than I took, because mine will only tell me like generalized regions of where I'm from and whether I like cilantro.
Yeah, no, there's some of them that will give you almost like a Facebook of other people that I guess have taken the test and say this person is your third cousin. This person is,
Oh,
specific
because
people. It will say that.
Ancestry will tell me I'm related, but it won't. I don't even know that it will tell me how.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Unless I'm doing it wrong, I could be doing it wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have
If
to do an
anybody,
experiment maybe and try this again. But back to my story. She did a DNA test to find out who her father was, and the father
oh,
was.
uh,
Okay.
go.
Okay.
I'm hanging on. I'm in suspense. Oh my god, who was?
The father was the fertility doctor that impregnated them.
I
So
have
he,
heard of this story.
instead of using sperm from the sperm bank, he used his own to impregnate her.
May I
And
jump in and guess
sure,
the rest of the story? Is this also the doctor who did it, like, was basically a serial impregnator? Did it to like
I'm
a
actually
whole
not
host of people?
sure, but I did hear that story, and I can imagine if this guy's done this once, I'm sure he's done it a lot of times. I will say that Rowlett has a lawsuit pending, or at least at the time of this list was created, against the retired doctor for fraud, medical negligence, battery, emotional distress, and breach of contract.
That is interesting. Also, I recall hearing about this case. I believe it's several people,
I think so
several
as
sets
well,
of
yeah.
parents that are actually involved in the case, because the doctor, if I recall, I'm going to throw a number out here. I don't know if it's correct. I want to say it was like over 40 people. It was like a lot. And I believe, in a very technical sense, the article that I was reading on it at the time said that it could be technically legal what he did, because there
What?
are very few laws around, I believe, like the fertility treatments and things like that in regards to specifics like that. So I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
It may be. I hope that the lawsuit goes well for them. I think it's a real creepy, weird thing to do. So
It's very creepy. What do you think compels someone to do that, to make that decision to say, my genes need to be passed on 40 times with 40 different women?
I think it's a. I don't think it's good for the gene pool. You don't need all those people who don't know who their parents are, like possibly creating more people together. In that particular case, and I think that it
Hmm.
is, if I don't know what causes somebody to do that. I imagine that it is probably something along the lines of that sort of, like, I don't know if I'm pushing it too far, but that serial killer mindset, where
Hmm.
somebody like just thinks that they're so important and so much more important than other people.
Right.
I think it just comes along those, but I
God
couldn't.
complex,
Maybe something like
narcissism.
that. Sure. Oh, probably a really healthy dose of narcissism. I would think. I don't think you'd do
Yeah.
that without it, but yeah.
Yeah. Creepy stuff. There was also another case where Jessica Allen volunteered to become a surrogate mother for a nice Chinese couple, Chinese
Okay.
descent,
Mhm.
meaning the doctors implanted sperm and eggs from the Chinese couple into her body. So she is Caucasian. So she gets pregnant with twins. Very exciting.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Yay!
yeah,
Yay!
just what we
More
wanted,
twins!
right?
Yeah.
So when she births them, she
Did one of them
notice
Oh, they didn't eat each other. Okay.
she notices you you stay away from these babies.
Thought this was gonna be like a Coliseum thing. Just be glad we're 6 years apart. This
Oh my god, we almost didn't make it.
I know. It
um,
was a close one.
so when she birthed the babies, she noticed that one of them did look Chinese and the other
Mhm.
one actually had darker skin. It didn't look like them at all. So
Okay.
she's like, "What's going on?" The the Chinese couple and Jessica both decide to get a DNA test on the baby. It turns out one of the babies is the biological product of Jessica Allen and her African American husband, Wardell Jasper. So the other baby was from the Chinese couple, but the other baby
Oh.
was biologically hers. So it turns out she had actually continued to ovulate while she was pregnant. And that's how this happened. And then
Huh.
through a lengthy battle, Jessica and Wardell finally gained custody of their biological son. So happy ending there.
Wow. They had
Um,
to battle for that?
yeah, it was kind of a complicated backstory. I didn't really want to get into it, but there was a little like kind of miscommunication, I guess, between the lawyers and a misunderstanding about uh, thinking the baby was being held for ransom, but then really
Oh.
the Chinese couple thought that she was going to sue. So then it was
Oh, so it just got
it
convoluted. It
just
was a
got
whole bunch of like
convoluted, and eventually Jessica and Wardell finally gained custody of their boy Malachi.
well, I'm glad. Also, Malachi's a nice name.
It is a nice
But
name.
yeah, yeah. Oh, wow, that one worked out well. So they didn't have to eat each other, but the parents almost did.
Yeah.
And that is a wow. That would have been a trip. But also it kind of
Mhm.
makes sense. If she was being a surrogate, I wonder I don't know much about like surrogacy. Do they have to go on fertility treatments? I
I
would
think
think
they do. I'm pretty sure they give themselves shots, hormone shots, to make the chance of pregnancy more likely.
that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, then I suppose that totally makes sense that her ovulation may have continued past like the actual
Yeah.
like conception stage.
I mean, it's
So,
incredibly rare, but
but
it does make sense if you have added hormones. Sometimes things can get a little wonky.
I wonder if they can still be like best friends. That
I
would
know.
be
I would
so
hope for that
great.
too.
They are still twins in some way, right? And like, I don't know, it would be adorable.
It would be, I think, especially hard for twins to be separated
Mhm.
because I know a lot of twins have a really close bond, like something even beyond you and I could ever get as sisters, right? And
Yeah.
like, you, if you didn't eat me, if I was,
Yeah.
if we were splitting a womb,
If we were in the womb, well, no,
if we
see,
made
that's
it
the thing.
out of
We
the
would just have
womb.
to look. You'd be safe as long as there were triplets. I'd just eat the other one, and we
Oh,
could still be born together.
okay,
It'd be
fair.
fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, I know that twins have a very close bond, so I could see that being an issue. But, at the end of the day, there's really nothing you can do. It's two completely different sets of biological children, parents. So
That's true. I guess just in my head canon,
mhm.
they're at least best friends and they hang out all the time and probably finish each other's sentences and stuff.
I hope so. I hope so. At
Yeah.
least they have probably like a telepathic connection that twins have.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
Yeah.
twins and they all swear that they have that. Just FYI.
Really.
Hmm.
I guess obviously not every twin is the same, but I wonder if they still have like that really intense connection.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking of like just stories of twins that I've read where unfortunately they don't like each other very
Oh
much. And
no.
that's a really sad tale because I feel like it's such a almost unique position to be in that it could
Hmm.
be amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. So, those are all instances of when DNA can be used to kind of put together pieces of the past, any missing puzzles, but it can also be effective in the present. So, have you ever been to Iceland?
I would like to go, but I have not been. Have you?
I have not actually, but I always want to go there. It is a very small country. It's actually 320,000 population, right?
Yes.
So it's a small island where everyone is distantly related. So
Yes.
the idea of kissing cousins is actually a real risk to Icelanders,
Icelandic people,
Icelandic people.
I guess. I don't know.
um, and that's partially why a group of 3 University of Iceland software engineering students created an app called the Icelandica app of Icelanders, which allows users to bump their phones and it will set off an incest prevention alarm if the
Oh.
users are too closely related.
Oh no. I mean, good. Great, but I mean, it's just like such a weird thing to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that actually that is fascinating. That is an
Mhm.
example of tech being used for, I mean, it's nice because that way they don't have to like fall in love and then find out they're related. They can find out they're related first
Yeah.
and avoid that whole mess.
They should
Because
make an app for all the children of the creepy doctor that's just
they
giving his
probably
sperm
should.
out left and right.
Yeah. So I had actually heard years ago that many people, well, that it's a very common practice in Iceland whenever people go on dates that they would kind of go through their genealogy first, or at
Yeah.
least tell people like who their ancestors were and things just to make sure they weren't related whenever they would do it. So that seems like that would really just save a lot of time.
Mhm.
Get straight to like the fun conversational talk unless, or do you think in that case if you're dating someone and you have to pull out your genealogy constantly, would you come up with the most interesting stories so if you are related you can like add to other people's repertoire of like what their ancestors did?
I mean, sure. At that point, the date's already over, so you might as well just have fun with it.
Yeah, I
Make up
guess
some
so.
wild things about the great grandparents that they're never gonna meet and
Yeah,
can't
totally.
confirm.
Yeah.
The app actually uses an online database of residents and their family trees stretching back 1,200 years. It's compiled using census data, church records, family archives, and a host of other information sources. It claims to have information on 95% of all Icelanders who have lived in the last 300 years. Currently, the alarm only alerts users if they and their new acquaintance have a common grandparent, and most people already know who their first cousins are. So I think if they expanded that, it would be much more useful. But
Yeah.
it's this thing exists, and I think that's crazy.
I gotta say I kind of want one. Like I just want to see who I'm related to like on the street when I'm
That
walking
would be cool,
around.
actually.
Yeah, just to see like, oh man, I'm a distant cousin with this person, or
Hmm.
we have a shared great great grandpa or something like that. I think that would be pretty neat to
Yeah.
see who all your relatives are, not just the ones you grew up with, but all the ones that you can continue growing with.
Oh, that's sweet. That's nice.
Yeah.
A final use case of where ancestry databases, DNA databases can be useful is, of course, in solving crime. So you say you've watched a little bit of CSI in your professional experience from watching that show. How accurate do you think DNA testing is, and how often do you think it plays into cases?
So, I actually have done some research on this outside of just TV
Ooh.
shows because I was pretty curious. Every once in a while, I just get curious about things and look them up, and DNA is one of them. So, I would say, I just need to address the CSI issue. I'm an amateur at best. I really watched a lot more Bones,
Oh, okay.
more Bones than CSI, and she mostly identifies things via bones
Hmm.
and less DNA. They very rarely get DNA. Eventually, they get like a DNA expert and they pull them on later. One of the things that I did learn in my actual research of DNA, which I'm not to cut into your notes, hopefully, but so DNA is like you said, like 99.9% accurate or something, but there are inaccuracies that do happen and they can happen in crime scenes as well. And there have been some examples of people sort of being placed at a crime that they weren't at just because the DNA results were incorrect and things like that. I also learned that fingerprinting is not like there is, this is a little bit off on a tangent, but there is no evidence that, or I'm not going to say there's no evidence. It is not a fact that fingerprints are 100% unique. It is
Really?
a thing that has not been proven
Okay.
as far
That
as I'm
seems pretty
aware.
unprovable, though.
That's the thing, is that you would think that, but there have been apparently relatively few studies on it in general. I believe.
Have they ever found a case where fingerprints match exactly to another person?
I would need to look that one up.
Because if they
Like,
haven't, then I feel like it's a pretty safe assumption with room for doubt that everyone has different fingerprints.
one would think. Now, until you consider, like, can fingerprints like change a lot over time, perhaps, or can they alter? Can you do anything to change your fingerprints?
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I think
Yeah,
you can like sand them off or something. I think that's
yeah.
what
You
serial killers do. But
there whenever fingerprints were when fingerprints were initially used in police work, I believe that people were very excited about them
mhm.
because previously there was no way to essentially identify repeat criminals. And so a repeat criminal would just like they would be arrested and someone would be like, "Oh, have you committed a crime before?" And they'd be like, "No, this is my first offense."
Uh-huh.
And there was nothing to prove that it wasn't because there was no like database of like it would just be based on like had this person seen this person before, had they arrested them before, had they been in the same court system before, things like that.
Got it.
And so once fingerprints came around, and there was a way to connect the same people to multiple crimes, it was a case of like people trying to like burn off or sand off their
Uh-huh.
fingerprints. One person, I believe, in one article that I read, even tried to carve them off with a knife. It's just
Wow.
it gets very while he was in the paddy wagon, while he was being arrested, he was like in the back, like trying to carve off his fingerprints.
Nothing says I'm not guilty. Like carving off your fingerprints furiously in the back of a
Yeah,
police car.
that's definitely I'm not a repeat offender kind of thing to do, you know? Yeah.
I remember when
Uh,
I was in like elementary school. I don't know what kind of event this was, but I remember a police officer came to the school and fingerprinted all of us.
they did that
And
to me
they
too.
made it seem like it was such a fun thing. Like, ooh,
I
you got ink
know.
on your fingers and like
Yeah.
here's your thumb, here's your, I'm like they're just putting us in the system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They did that to us too. They did it to our whole class, and I'm pretty sure they kept those fingerprints,
I think
like
so.
just in case.
I think they really don't change much as you get older either.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So the bigger concern with fingerprints is that the degree of accuracy like that needs to be measured on a fingerprint in order to actually use it in court, it varies by region.
Mhm.
So like it uh and the people who are looking at the fingerprints are people who train for 10 years to do so, but it's still people looking at them. Like in CSI and things, they show them matching them up exactly, and they're like, we have a match, you know,
Uh-huh.
but in reality, it's the computer will give like several different potential matches, and then a person will sit there and be like, oh, this looks like this match is here, and I'm trying to read this ridge, I'm trying to do this, but there are different degrees of like expertise that are needed, I believe, like region by region. And so that's why fingerprints could be a little faulty. DNA, similarly, CSI, like, or what have you, everything is always like DNA is like the surefire way to tell. And yet, I believe in that instance as well, some cases they will be very careful about using just DNA evidence. And I
Mhm.
don't think just DNA evidence is enough to convict. I think you still have to build the rest of the case. That's all I know.
Yeah. I think in every case, they tend to use all of these elements together. So they may narrow it down to, let's say, 5 suspects through fingerprints. And then they
Mhm.
also find some DNA. That narrows it down to 3 people. And then they look at what overlaps, and that can give them, a good idea of who's actually responsible for the crime. So that is actually something that they do with DNA and combining that with other elements to figure out, narrow things down to exact people. So, according to a study detailed by science.org, it concluded that by combining an anonymous DNA sample with some basic information, such as someone's rough age, researchers could narrow that person's identity down to fewer than 20 people by starting with a DNA database of 1.3 million individuals. So they could start with a pool of over 1 million people and narrow it down to just 20 individuals through DNA and basic facts about them, like age.
Hmm. I mean, that's very impressive.
So, how do they do this? They upload DNA data to GEDmatch, a free online database where anyone can share their data from consumer DNA testing companies such as 23andMe and Ancestry.com, to search for relatives who have submitted their DNA as well. So, is it effective? GEDmatch likely only encompasses about 0.5% of the US adult population, but millions of Americans are using DNA ancestry testing services. So, once the GEDmatch figure rises to 2%, more than 90% of people of European descent will have a third cousin or closer relative and can be found this way. So,
Interesting.
essentially, you really don't need that much data in order to make a match. So 2% of the population, it seems like nothing. It seems like they wouldn't be able to do anything with that. In reality, they could match about 90% of people from just that small amount.
That's actually really impressive.
Yeah.
That's a really incredible technology right there. So here's a question for you then. I know that we've talked a lot about like, Ancestry and 23andMe and all those things. You said you have not done any of them. Is that right?
I have not, no.
Is it something you're interested in? Or are you kind of trying to keep your DNA out of the system?
I've thought about it. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be interesting to see all the health and the ancestors it might match me to, but also you may find out things you don't want to know. What if I find out some dirty, dark family secret that tears everyone apart?
Yeah, like asparagus makes your pee smell, but
Yeah.
nobody else's. It's just you.
Yeah.
Oh no. But no, true. I don't think I did, but I guess there's a possibility that we're not related. I just don't think it's very strong.
Yeah, probably.
That would be some crazy genetic randomness there. But no, I do understand that. I do.
Yeah,
I
I'm
do.
thinking
But
about it. This makes me really want to try it, but we'll see.
it makes me curious to see how we would differ. Because
Hmm.
again, just back on DNA, the way that I understand it is like, let's say you're taking your DNA from your mom and she's like 50% Scottish and 50% Norwegian. I'm just picking like European ones,
Yep.
but like whatever. And then you could technically just take all of the Norwegian and none of the Scottish. And then
Yeah,
you're
I'm
like,
curious.
all
Okay,
right.
maybe I'll try it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
a
I'm just
cheek
curious.
swab, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can manage that.
Unless you're Chimera, then it gets like weird.
Yeah.
There's a question for you. If a person has like the Chimera syndrome,
Hmm.
does that mean, well, I guess since it's like a twin, they would have shared probably really similar DNA anyway.
Hmm.
But oh my goodness. All right, here's a question for you. On the
Okay.
couple, on the surrogate that had two different like parents' babies in her at the same time, if one of those had eaten the other, what is that even? That's like two
Uh,
separate families merging together in one baby.
I'm
That one would be crazy.
So here's a question for you.
Uh-huh.
When you eat a twin, are you
Uh-huh.
actually embracing it as part of yourself or are you eliminating its presence?
I think that's really person to person. I
Okay.
would like I'd
What
like
did
to
you
think I'd be
do? What did you
I
do
would
with my sibling?
it was a long time ago.
Tell
But
me.
I will say that I would like to think that I am both of us.
Okay.
We are all one being, and this is how we were meant to be because perhaps we were too incomplete without each other.
Oh,
And now we're complete. But either that or we battled it out to the death and it was a ferocious feast. I'm not sure.
one or
One
the
thing.
other. One or the
Yeah,
other.
one or the other. I like to think of the embracing kind though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there is no evidence that I had a twin and that I ate it. This is really just my theory. So for what that's worth.
Yeah.
So just remember when this is sisters processing, it is now three sisters
I love it.
processing.
That's why we say it three
And Aloy.
times. Processing,
Yeah.
processing, processing.
Processing. Pour one out for the twin. That's it. Third processing. All right. So all this DNA stuff is pretty cool tech. Are there any instances of real world use?
Yes. So authorities have actually been using this technology in order to pinpoint crimes, match them with suspects. One of the most famous instances of this was in catching the Golden State Killer, who
Oh,
have you heard of them? Are you familiar?
no. I'm also trying to remember what the Golden State is.
California.
That's what I thought
Hmm.
because they have like the Golden Gate Bridge, right?
I didn't know that was why. I thought it was just because it's a happy place,
Oh no,
beaches,
I don't think it's
sunshine.
why. Oh yeah, I don't think it's why. I think it's probably because of the gold rush, if I had to guess.
Oh,
But
that's an even better guess. But I like
yeah,
your Golden Gate connection. That's a good way to remember it.
they just They really brag a lot though, don't they?
They do.
Like they're wearing all that jewelry and they're just like, it's just gold. Gold. So
I
okay,
mean,
all right,
California
California.
is beautiful. I will give them that. I lived there for 4 years, and you can't argue with the beach and the mountains and the desert and being able to do all of that in one
It's,
day. It's
it's
insane.
true.
It's
It's
insane.
true. They do seem to have it all.
Yeah.
No joke. But
Golden Gate, Golden State. Well, they also had the Golden State Killer, who
less glamorous.
less
But okay.
glamorous, yes, but a nickname that they gave this man who was found responsible for 13 counts of murder and dozens of rapes and thefts in California from 1976 to 1986. So after 1986, these crimes, they had been happening serially over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After 1986, they about just stopped. So they never knew who did this. They weren't able to pinpoint anyone until they applied DNA technology, which helped them accurately identify the serial murderer as Joseph DeAngelo Jr. So,
Hmm.
how did they do this? Police used DNA from crime scenes to find a distant relative through a popular genealogy website database, then built a family tree that eventually led them to him. They tailed D'Angelo and secretly collected DNA from his car door and a discarded tissue to get an arrest warrant. And then in 2018, he was arrested, and in 2020, he pleaded guilty. So, August 21st, 2020, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, which I'm not going to get into the specific details of the case because it's extremely disturbing and traumatic, and I would not recommend anyone looks it up. But life imprisonment without possibility of parole is him getting off easy.
Oh wow.
Honestly,
Oh.
he's a terrible person. Um, but it's pretty insane that from 1986 to 2018, he was allowed to just walk around free. No one knew what he did. He got away with it for so many years.
Making
And then,
friends, going to barbecues,
uh-huh,
just having a good old time in the Golden State.
he was a grandparent. He was a former
Wow.
police officer, a Vietnam
What?
veteran, and he had never been on investigators' radar until about a decade after the crime seemed to end. So,
Oh my God. Well, that's so fascinating because it kind of makes sense. I've imagined that within an investigative police force, one of the last places you're gonna look is on your own team.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
And at the same time, being a former police officer, he would know all the tips and tricks to kind of
yep.
get around the system and what they look for. So, it's it's insane to me that they were able to apply this technology so many years later to actually catch this guy who very much deserved it, deserved to be caught. Even though he's an old man when he was caught, phew, good riddance.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things about DNA. And, you know, wow, that is a very good example
Hmm.
of it being used in the real world context.
In terms of privacy and concerns around that, Ancestry.com and 23andMe, I assume any others, they all kind of have the same policy on it where they use all their resources to actually resist requests from law enforcement, but they may be forced to comply through a warrant or,
Mm.
some sort of legal means. But generally, they are policy wise seemingly concerned about safety and how people can access your DNA and data. There are obviously concerns about hacking, things like that. Maybe if you accidentally opt into research and you're not aware of it. Or agreements could change at any point and they could use information for other purposes. You kind of had the opposite experience where they had that open policy and then they reined it in, but they could potentially change that policy again, say they're sold to another company.
They could. I wonder if I would have to re agree to a terms of service, but I
Mm.
also wonder if it would be something as simple as they would have it pop up when I'm not paying attention. And I would
Uh-huh.
think it's the same terms of service that's always coming through. But at least if they did that, I would hope that there are like sort of ancestry.com watchdogs or something that would be, talking about it. But
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I do think that it is one of those things to always take into consideration. If you're giving someone your DNA, assume that it can probably always, there's always a possibility it can be accessed by someone you don't want to see it. That
Mhm.
includes hackers. Like, I think it's important to maybe always consider that when putting something so intrinsically personal out
Yeah.
there.
I will say also that Google notably has invested millions of dollars into 23andMe, which kind of makes me think of an advertising connection. So with DNA testing, you can say, this person likes cilantro. This person doesn't like cilantro. This person's related to these people that like cilantro. Maybe
Oh,
they will one day target their ads towards only these people that like cilantro. Or, I mean, that's a very silly example, but all the things you can learn with DNA and matching that to advertising databases that already exist. It makes you
yeah.
think a little bit about that and how they could connect you to family members and, advertise to people who may not even be that active online.
Especially since you bring up 23andMe. And
Hmm.
23andMe has, I believe, is the one that will give you a lot of health concerns or issues that it thinks that you should look out for and things.
Hmm.
I could see if Google's investing in one of them, I would see it being that one. I think the medical industry
Yeah.
is ginormous.
Yep.
Like there is a lot of money made there and to be made there. So if they're trying to gather data on who needs what and then fish them out like ads, that's the service to do. It's going
Hmm.
to be much less ancestry.com that's like, "Hey, are you from Zimbabwe?" And then that's like all they offer you and they're like, "You like cilantro?" Like,
uh,
I don't know. It's
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not saying Google is doing this. I actually don't think that this is being done on either of these sites, at least not publicly. But I'm just saying it is something to keep in mind when people are gathering data. Generally, it comes back to advertising and building databases. Although I have actually heard theories that these companies keep your data, they keep your DNA, and they use it because they want to clone you.
I recall thinking about that
Uh-huh.
when I was giving over my DNA in the first place. And I just remember thinking like if there's a clone I want to meet them. Like that's all. That was like my and I did not say eat them. It's not like a twin. It's a clone. It's
Yeah.
different. um I don't know. That's a complicated one. I could see them trying to do like research on it and stuff but I do feel with something so complicated, I don't think they need random people's DNA. Like they can take it and they can do it. And I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they are, but there are so many people who would volunteer for that.
Hmm.
So many who would be like, "Oh, please clone me. Let's
Hmm.
see what happens." I don't think that they would. Well, I say so many. I don't know. Listeners, is anybody out there
I
think the
mean,
same?
would you?
Because
Would you volunteer
I
for that?
I think so. I think it'd be fascinating. Yeah,
What?
yeah. I think maybe it's just because I'm like missing my empty twin. But
Oh,
yeah,
that
I
might be
think it would
it.
be
Gotta fill
really
the
it'd
void.
be it'd be really neat. I think to see what a cloned me could do.
Yeah.
I'd also be a little concerned because I know then that brings in the whole like nature versus nurture. And if they're brought up in a different way, would
Hmm.
cloned me be like a terrible person? Would they
Well,
be an even better person?
I mean, you
Would
already
they?
ate your twins, so they might just be cloning the evil within.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what if my twin was the evil one?
Well, still, I mean, you say the
Oh,
same thing.
oh my God. If, and again, there is no evidence that I ate my twin or that I even had a twin, but if they clone me and they only took a swab from my cheek,
Mm.
then they're only getting half of my DNA. Like, let's say I had like that
Mm.
Chimera thing, which is not a guarantee, I think, even if you eat your twin. But, but let's say I was,
Mm.
and then they clone me. They are literally cloning the me that would be without having eaten the twin. So it wouldn't
Ah,
be me. It couldn't be
I
me.
see. Maybe if they swab the other cheek, then they would clone the twin and actually let them live in existence in this world.
Exactly. Maybe that
Oh,
was what was meant to be all along. That was
okay.
fate.
You know,
They're supposed to be here.
you should write an email to 23andMe and let
And
them know you consent.
yes, and I'll be like, "Look, I know you're cloning this stuff. So, let's just talk about this. We're going
Hmm.
to go in depth and we're going to talk about eating twins, but bear with me." And
Hmm.
then just continue on. So,
Yeah, I mean, the possibilities of them actually cloning. I think the world is much more focused on robots and AI, and I think humans are honestly going to become obsolete at a certain point. So I don't think they're really, although maybe that's more reason to clone so that humans don't go extinct. Keep them in a little database. Pull them
Have
out
you
for a rainy day.
seen Star Trek?
Not really.
Okay. I
Yeah,
think
tell me.
although
Tell me.
I do like the pulling them out for a rainy day thing. So Star Trek kind of, and not just Star Trek, but the Orville. If anybody watches the Orville, it's kind of like this a spiritual successor to Star Trek, I would say. But it's I think is Seth MacFarlane the person who does Family Guy. It's that person
Yes. Yep.
is like he's also like the main character and everything. But uh, so both of them kind of go into different kinds of like futuristic like human offspring and pregnancies and things
Okay.
like that. In one instance in Star Trek, like here's why I think that humans probably won't go extinct. It's just like the way that we are currently managing things is like so uncomfortable. It's like people go into like labor for 20 hours or possibly more, or maybe 9 hours, either way. There are complications. Sometimes in Star Trek, once they just transported a baby out of them,
Oh,
they're just like,
wow. That's
"Beep,"
convenient.
and then they didn't even have to birth them. And I think if you could like grow clones or babies in pods, will be totally fine. But I think people will continue wanting to reproduce with randomness. I think most people probably don't want to genetically clone themselves. I think I'm getting off on a tangent here again. This is a complete other thing. What was the question?
I don't remember actually. Star Trek, cloning, rainy day, apocalypse. Are they doing it?
Oh, yeah.
Are humans gonna become obsolete?
So hold up. So you're saying that you do not want a clone?
To be honest, I think it'd be pretty cool to have like 10 of me just so we could mass produce content. That's really all I want. I just want more people to edit so I don't have to do it. But I
But
mean,
what if you get 5 of you that are super like not into any of it? And all they want to do is like go live in a cabin in the woods. They don't want any socials.
I mean, that's
They're just going to go be a
partially
hermit.
that person lives inside of me and that is my backup plan in life. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I understand. I have a
Yeah.
hermit inside me too. Probably my twin. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what side of you would come out when the clone is there, what's actually going to express.
Hmm.
But would I want the clones around long term? Not really. People,
Huh.
they might get me in trouble. Maybe they'll say some crazy things and people will think it's me. Like, that wasn't me. That was Danny Dutch number 2.
Maybe they'll do some crimes and the DNA will be the same.
They could pin it against me.
Could you be responsible for the things that your clones do? Very interesting future legal challenges there.
Very interesting. Anyway, this is partially why I have not actually submitted my DNA to either of these sites, but it's, uh, it's, I still kind of want to do it.
It's very tempting just to know
Yeah.
bits about yourself and all. Maybe someday they'll have like self DNA testing kits where you can like kind of do it, and maybe they already have them. I don't know,
Hmm.
but it would be pretty cool if you could just like prick your finger, swab your cheek, do whatever, and then like on your phone or something would come up, and nobody would necessarily have the DNA, but it could be localized
Uh,
and have like a database already that it could like sift through and be like, oh, here's what you are, and here's what you should watch out for. And it's basically just like a health scanner, and you
mm-hmm.
just do it. And
Yeah, I just remembered my solution for cloning because I actually thought about this issue before. If there's multiple
ooh,
me's running around, how do I know? How do I distinguish myself against the other ones? How do people know it's
mm,
the real me?
uh-huh,
So my solution is that
okay,
I want 2 clones. I
uh-huh.
want one of them to be gigantic and I want the other
Oh,
one to be like pocket sized.
oh,
So
that is excellent.
that's my
That,
workaround. Hot
I
clone
love that.
tip.
I would be into 2 smaller ones, and then they could literally sit on my shoulders. And they
Oh,
could be
that's
like,
nice.
yeah. Just imagine it. I don't know, just
I'm
like little
picturing like a
clones.
little angel and a little devil.
I was immediately picturing that as well, but I was like, I don't really want to assume that one of them's just going to be evil and one of them's just going to be good. They probably will,
Yeah.
but I
Let's
mean,
be real.
or what if they're both evil and they're both just like telling me to do, basically the choices that we make in video games all the time, and they're like, no, always pick the evil one.
Mm,
But either way, I just think it'd be super adorable to have just 2 little clones
that would
just
be
hanging
cute.
out. Yeah, and they
Probably.
probably wouldn't mind it with their little legs. It could save them a lot of time walking around.
Yeah, they'd have trouble keeping up with you if you were going grocery shopping, for example, walking behind
They
you.
They would, but I wonder at that size if you could. You remember the flying man hoax? Maybe we could actually make him something like that at that size, and it would actually work.
Or you can get them like a little electric scooter, a tiny little.
Oh my goodness. I've been wanting to get into robotics. So I could I can make them so many cool little machines, and your tiny clone could hang out with my tiny clones,
Mm-hmm.
and they could all just like go joyriding together.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
but the big clone, would you sit on their shoulder?
Honestly, yeah, I'm kind of lazy. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind the
Yeah.
break. And then the
Yeah.
little clone can sit on my shoulder.
Yeah. If your clone is big enough, I wouldn't mind sitting on their shoulder sometimes. Or they could cradle me in their arms,
Everyone's
you
welcome.
know?
But this is
Yeah.
why the clone is going to turn on me. I'm already volunteering them out for work that they didn't volunteer for.
No, no. Don't worry. I'll befriend them. They won't even know.
Okay.
It'll all be good. I'll bring ice cream.
Okay. Oh, yeah, they'll like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be good. Yeah.
Perfect. That's about everything I had on DNA ancestry testing and genealogy. So let's go ahead and get into the listener questions.
Ooh, listener questions. Looking forward to it.
We're going to start off on
Yay.
an easy one. How are you doing?
Oh, I would say I am doing very well. Just been keeping very busy, I suppose. Oh, I'm so bad at answering how I'm doing. It's like my
I know.
worst question to answer. How are you
I
doing?
have a bad habit of when someone asks me that, I don't talk about how I'm feeling. I talk about what I've been doing.
Oh, I think that's what I just did.
Yeah,
Or I was
I've
going
noticed.
to.
I've noticed our whole family does it. So, but I won't talk about that. But I will say that I've been very busy. I've been feeling, honestly, very inspired by what we're doing and not by the content that we've been talking about and everything, and like just ready to keep making things, but also kind of overwhelmed. And this kind of leads into another question that's or comment that someone had, which it was talking about DMs. And I don't actually know what you're trying to say, but I've gotten comments about DMs before and like maybe not answering them fast enough or answering them at all, which I will just say that I have been trying to kind of manage how often I actually look at social media. So if I ever am not answering your DMs, I promise it's not intentional. And I try to get to whoever I can.
Also worth noting, Danny Dutch is managing a lot of social medias on her own. Like
Yeah.
she's basically running the sisters processing social media, and I'll get on and comment every once in a while. I can't see the DMs, so I think I could see the DMs though. I should pick that up more. I'm sorry. You've been very
No,
overwhelmed.
this wasn't a criticism on you or anyone watching. I just want to say, I love you very much. Thank you for watching, everybody. And be patient with us. If we don't get around to you, it's not because we don't care. It's just because we are both doing many, many things all the
Yeah.
time. And,
And it's really just us.
it's just us. And
Just us.
burnout is a real thing. Also, just a quick reminder to take care of yourselves and think about your self care. And if you find yourself uh, feeling really sucked into everything online because it can be such a vortex, take a little break and uh, do do something that makes your mental health feel really good. So just a reminder for you and for me and for everyone to
Mhm.
deconnect sometimes.
And
Disconnect.
if you can't do it for you, if you can't bring yourself to like just give yourself a moment, do it for the twin that you probably ate. Do it for them.
Do it for them.
Just take a moment.
RIP. And then another question. So I actually posted because we had just spoken about deepfakes and
Mm.
deepfake art and issues that it might cause in society. So a story blew up yesterday where people said Donald Trump has been arrested. An AI art, Midjourney, right? It created all these images of Donald Trump. Biden was literally the cop holding him, arresting
I heard
him.
about that. I
And
saw
people, for
pictures.
some
Yeah.
reason, believed it, even though all
Yeah.
these ridiculous things were going on. And the pictures, honestly, he kind of looked like a melted mask to me. It wasn't the most convincing art
Mhm.
I had seen, but a
Yeah.
lot of people believed it. And that's so concerning to me.
It is, and this is one of those issues like don't get your news from social media. You can
Mm-hmm.
be inspired, you can look things up, but
Mm-hmm.
don't get your news from social media. What the heck? There are
Yeah.
actual real legitimate like Pulitzer Prize winning news reporters out there on real freaking news sites that are just waiting for your views. Go to those sites. Go to NPR, you know. NPR is always a classic, you know.
Hmm.
I'd like to push other ones, but I don't know. I like New York Times
Just
and
check
things.
multiple sources, I think, and
Yeah.
be really careful with what you're looking at in this new age that we're entering into. It's only going to get more and more realistic,
Yeah.
which brings us to a question that. So they
Mm-hmm.
said, speaking in regards to those pictures, does this mean photographic evidence is no longer going to stand up in court? And is there a way to prove a photo is real anymore?
Did I actually don't know too much about the court process regarding photographic evidence.
Hmm.
I know that people have been photoshopping and altering photos since I want to say the 1800s. Since
Photoshopping?
yeah, it was literally called photoshopping
Are
before
you
Photoshop was a program.
serious?
Yes. Yes, I believe so. And I could be wrong about that, but it was another one of my weird research tangents one day.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I'm not sure like photographic evidence in courts. I imagine they probably carried some weight before. I imagine, but I don't know how much, and always with the realization that things could be altered in
Hmm.
photos, I believe. In the future, what are you going to do? Like if you're talking about photographic evidence of like somebody snapping a snapshot of like the crime scene,
Hmm.
I feel like that was probably held up in court fairly well. But I
So
don't
the
know.
first thing that came to my mind when I read this was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard court case. Did you watch that?
Mhm.
Because the whole thing was televised and it was a big moment for society when it was going on for weeks at a time.
I watched very little of it, but I did keep up with what was happening through I think NPR
Hmm.
was reporting on it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So some of the things Johnny's team accused Amber of was photoshopping some of the pictures that she submitted to evidence, like bruises and, pictures like that, things that would have
Mhm.
contributed to her case. So I remember in those instances, the on us was kind of on her team at that point in proving no, these images actually are real. Both teams had people look at the evidence and determine from their own point of views, is this real? Is this fake? And then they would go look at the metadata, see how many times the when the photo was taken, how many times it had been processed in different
Mhm.
programs, things like that. So I could see, I don't think photo evidence is going to go away. I think that it may just become a larger fight in proving that something is real or something is not. And I know that there are ways, technical ways to kind of look into that more. But when something's just shared online on like Twitter, for example, I think that kind of wipes it all away and you're just left to believe, wipes all the metadata away and you're just left to decipher for your own what's real, what's not. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds I mean, yeah, because people can't see the metadata. They're just
Mm-hmm.
looking at it.
Unless you have the
Um,
direct source. So if someone sends you a picture to your, well, if someone takes a picture and sends it to you on your phone, then you can look at the metadata. But if I were to upload a picture to Twitter and then you download that from Twitter, it wipes all that away to keep you private,
yeah, because
essentially.
they encrypt. They
Mm-hmm.
I they do something with it. I can't remember what it's called, but speaking of knowing whether something's real or not, I find this fascinating. It's difficult to tell sometimes when things are really making waves online and when there are just like a whole bunch of bots and things are
Mm-hmm.
like spun like they're making waves. And also, bots are going to keep getting better because
Mm-hmm.
we won't be able to tell. Like, again, as I was talking about with ChatGPT, which was the last episode, many people did a very good job of giving it a human touch.
Yeah.
It speaks fairly well. And I have had friends in the corporate world that have had it write emails for them. And I was talking to one of them recently, and they said that it wrote an email for them, and they were like, "Oh, actually, make it more casual." And so it did, but then it was like too casual. It was like, "Hey, brah." And then she was like, "Okay, we'll tighten it up a little bit." And then it gave her like the perfect email. So I think one of those things as well, we're not going to know who's actually reacting to these things and what
Mm-hmm.
is a real wave and what's not. It used to be fairly easy to tell. And now something could seem to be making waves, something could seem to be a sensation, but it could really just be like some kind of propaganda that is set up to make people think that a whole bunch of people are thinking a certain way or
Mm-hmm.
doing a certain thing. So I'm not saying that people didn't react to Trump and believe that it was happening, but I'm also saying that I believe that there are a lot of bots that are triggered by any information about Trump as
Yeah,
well,
I could see that.
because it's a very
Although
popular
when I was
topic.
scrolling on TikTok, I saw several commentators pop up saying, "Oh my, you won't believe what just happened."
Oh, oh
So,
yeah, absolutely. And people fall for things all the time.
yeah,
And I'm not
especially
saying that they don't.
I mean, I shared the statistics in that first episode, but a lot of people don't even know deepfakes exist and they're just not
Yeah.
even aware of the capabilities that, these technologies have reached. It's actually insane. And it's only going to get more and more convincing. On your point to emails though, so
Mhm.
Google just released Bard, their AI,
Oh,
their
yeah.
chatbot AI version of Chat GPT, Google Bard. They just
Sydney's got her eyes out.
she does, but she's not worried, Sydney. She's
No.
flexing. But they released it to a small group of people just as a beta right now. But
Mhm.
I saw a demo on what it would be capable of, and you mentioning emails made me think of it because all you had to do was type a few words and then it would craft an entire email for you.
Yeah.
And it made me think if everyone is using this technology, at one point we're really all just bots talking to each other.
Yeah,
We're not
it's
even humans anymore. It's just like everything is automated and your bot is talking to someone else's bot. It's just weird.
it's a weird future to be sure. It's things like corporate emails are it's funny because on the one hand it's a huge time saver. I'm sure you've worked in the corporate world. You've probably
Mhm.
sent a lot of emails that have to have a certain tone and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, I have as well. It's so on the one hand, it is a huge time saver. When people start using it for their personal use, though, I think is when things just go really downhill
Yeah.
because there is something about connecting with people in communication that is just incredibly crucial to the human experience. I think I'm not
Mhm.
a researcher, but it seems to like the evidence seems to point that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like I said, I hate answering emails. And maybe, if I automated my DMs, everyone, everyone would be happy, but it's not going to be personal. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
But yeah, I just thought
yeah.
it was kind of funny to think about. It's not even people talking to each other anymore. It's just bots. Like like I said, I mean, not that humans are going
Well,
to be completely obsolete, but like maybe.
an interesting thing too is I wonder if some of these like YouTube personalities and things will start using AI to sort of script or write
I
what they should
actually
react as.
There actually is already a Twitch streamer that is completely an AI bot.
I imagine that one has some problems from time to time.
Maybe. I actually haven't watched them, but I think so it's one of those avatar situations.
Yeah,
The
of course,
little
yeah.
anime girl or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then she responds to chats and I think it does a pretty decent job. She has a big audience. I don't know. It is funny to think about entertainers also being replaced by this, but
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. I honestly don't know where the future is going to go. I think it
mhm.
is one of those things that is such an interesting conundrum because on the one hand you have AI right now, they can give you a whole bunch of like fairly generic things. Even the art that they create, Midjourney for instance, can create beautiful, like actually really unique art, really interesting art. But sometimes like ChatGPT will give you something a little bit more generic. Every once in a while they'll
Hmm.
happenstance upon the beautiful 70,000-year-old space walrus poem that rips your heart out.
That's
But
it.
what they are doing is taking the information that they have scraped from so many humans and all the uniqueness that humans have like put into the artistic pile. In the future and even currently, I think that humans are having to try to stand out a bit more because now the markets can be absolutely flooded with an art style, for instance, that was considered, really popular among people. Anything that is popular, the AI will start to reproduce. And so as people need to constantly be changing and making new things, then the AI is going to intake it and
Mhm.
keep reproducing it. I don't know. This seems exponential. I have no
Yeah.
idea. I don't know where the end is
I don't
here.
either. Brave New World.
For the Star Trek fans out there, in Next Generation, with Captain Picard and everyone, they do a really interesting thing with humans and art because computers can create pretty much anything you want. The replicator can make anything you want.
Mm.
You don't even technically have to ever cook again because you go to the replicator and you're like, hey, give me tea, Earl Grey hot, right? And it's just like, psh, and it just gives it to you. It completely
Convenient.
makes it. Yeah. And it's convenient and they can listen to any music they want and they can tell the computer like play this, but alter this and put these instruments in, basically like what we're doing now or what we're starting to do now. And but they still have like this sort of human interest private shows. People will still work on like Riker plays the trombone really specifically and he'll like put on shows for people. And Captain Sisko in Deep Space 9 still cooks his father's jambalaya recipe. And they do it because they say there's a human touch. There's just a thing that happens whenever like a person makes it. And I wonder if that's going to be our future. It's like computers can do everything. Robots can do everything, but we still do things because we enjoy it and love it and just want to share it with people.
Right.
And that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see where that goes. Another listener question we had, thoughts on targeted ads. Are we being monitored? Actually, I worked in advertising for a very long time. I still do. But short answer, yes. Kind of. I mean, every website you opt into, all that cookie data, every store you buy from, they're all building lists, with your information on it. And a lot of the data itself is actually stripped so that you can't actually see this person, Danny Dutch, age, location, interests. It's just a code, like a number. Like I don't have an example, but
It's anonymized.
it's
Like
anonymized. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. So in a sense, yes, you are. You belong to lists, but they can't necessarily, if someone were to hack that list, they wouldn't be able to match it to you because that list is hashed, they call it. So yes and no. You can always kind of opt out or adjust your privacy settings to help reset that. But I will say this used to bother me a lot, but then I get a lot of really good ads on Instagram for like clothing companies that I like, and I'm like, dang, they got me down. That's my style. Like this company, Pretty Little Thing. I'd never heard of them until I got an Instagram ad, and I was like, check it out. Bought a lot of
All
stuff.
right.
Kept coming back. So, so yes. But there are
Again,
a lot
not sponsored.
not sponsored, not sponsored. But there are a lot of restrictions on how they can target you. And I'm not really going to get into the details of that because it's a hodgepodge of rules, but they do what they can to make it personalized for you without invading your privacy too much. That's really the best way I can put it in layman's terms.
Yeah, I bow to your expertise on this subject, having worked in the field. So, yay, thank you. I think
Don't thank me for my service.
No, I'm
It's
thanking
not
you
an
for
admirable
your
job.
knowledge. I'm thanking you for your knowledge. But also there is, for anyone who I think is like interested in learning more, there was a really amazing John Oliver episode. I believe it was in the last season, and he was able to track people with data in the White House. So
Specific people?
no, he could make guesses. I think that's just what it comes down to. And those are also public figures, people that you know things about, right? But so he could kind of make guesses, but it didn't get like he could see that they were 40 something year old balding men who were looking at a certain type of thing.
Right.
Or so he could like make inferences and things like that. But it's worth checking out that episode if you haven't seen it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's an excellent episode. He goes really in depth and goes through like the data buying process and things like that, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, interesting. Final question, and I am kind of paraphrasing here, but how do you feel about indie games or low budget games versus big budget games as a game
Okay.
developer?
Oh, so I think this is also a fascinating topic, and I could probably talk forever. But I think that we went through this phase with big budget games where they started, and they're still doing it. I can see it happening, but you're starting to get like a little bit of tweaking now. But where they will go off of data sets and they'll be like, this is what people play, this is what they like, this is this type of game, these are these rules, and they kept putting things into rules. And I'm not even talking about sequels or somebody just making the same game over and over again. In some ways, that's what people want.
Are you
They just
saying
want more of the same
it's
thing.
kind of like a focus group put together what they think people respond to, so people are just catering to what they think will work, other as opposed to actually getting inspired by an idea and creating a
And
game?
yes, and putting restrictions and everything and making sure that everything is multiplayer accessible. And even if it's a single player game, you saw that trend happening with AAAs. I think what indies are doing and what they have done is sort of saved the creativity in gaming. And I am going to exclude some AAA companies from this. I have huge respect for FromSoft. They had a vision and they followed through, and there's no pay to win stuff in that. And they
What did
just
they
like
make?
they made Elden Ring, which
Ah,
yep, they made Elden Ring, they made Dark Souls.
I
But
love
yeah,
it.
they have an absolute vision and they follow it. And despite what people say or despite the criticisms, they're just like, hey, this is the game that we want to make and we made it.
And then they
So there.
made
And it's
Game of the Year.
yeah, and they're like, and it's a gigantic open world game and it's really intricate and it's detailed and it has no like pay to win or DLC or anything though. This is just what
Oh,
we made, so deal with it.
actually, a DLC is coming.
Oh, well, I mean, I should clarify. I actually love DLCs. And if they add to a game or they add a lot of things to the game, I suppose what I was trying to say is, what is the phrase? Loot boxes.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
I was saying DLC. I was thinking loot boxes. No, I'm fine with DLCs. I remember when people complained about them back in the day, but I think that was only when something would release with something actually capably like on the disc already, and they would lock it out and make someone pay for it on day one. Also a problem, but also now it seems like a distant dream. But so I think what indie games are doing, other than like a few specific AAA companies, is for the indie games that you see pop, I think something that they have in common is they break the rules. So you'll see those genre bending games that then everyone else starts to copy. Games like FTL or games like Slay the Spire, that kind of just do things their own way. They have a dream and they go for it. And then a whole bunch of other people will just like copy those games. Slay the Spire, for instance, it's a card building game and also a combat game. It's a almost JRPG style fighting system
Okay.
with cards, and you're basically making your way up a tower. It's procedural and it can be very, very difficult. And sometimes it kind of just depends on how you roll, like right at the beginning. So just to like roll it back around. So I think what indie games are doing, as opposed to a lot of big budget titles, they are breaking the rules. They can reach out and grab that creativity. They have less at stake. There's less many millions of dollars being thrown into those games, I would assume, in most cases. So there's a lot less to lose. There's a lot to lose for a very small group of people, but a lot less to lose in a general sense or as a whole. The big budget companies, I'm sure that you've noticed as well, the AAA titles, EA and such, like they will now actually fund like small indie studios to make a game for them now. So they have taken notice of the indie scene and the creativity therein and things like that. But man, without indies, I just don't think we'd have very many fun games.
Yeah.
There are still good big ones, but just think of like most of your favorite games right now. I'm super curious. If anybody has their favorite games, let us know. Because
Yeah, please.
yeah, most of mine I think are indie titles, honestly. But the question, I guess I could talk on this forever. We'll probably do an episode
Yeah,
in the
we
future
should.
that deep dives. I think
Yeah.
we should. But yeah, I wish I could answer that more in depth. But for now, I will wind up talking for 10 hours.
No,
So
that was great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the questions and the comments. We always love reading your feedback. And again, thank you for being so positive and supportive so far. We're having so much fun with this and can't wait to keep going. If you want to keep up with us, you can follow us on our socials at Sisters Processing. We're also on every major podcast platform. So again, don't forget to leave 5 stars, like, follow.
And if you don't do it for us, do it for the twin.
We release new episodes every Tuesday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to see more of Ariel's content, you can follow her at
Never Skip Game Day on either Twitter or Instagram. And that's no E's in the never. Or A Wandering Orc is my streaming name on Twitch.
And you can follow me at Danny Dutch TV on Twitch or YouTube for more gameplay content.
Thank you so much for watching another episode of Sisters Processing.